أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على رسولنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه وأتباعه وسلم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي اللهم بحق سورة الإخلاص اجعلنا من عبادك المخلصين المخلصين آمين والحمد لله رب العالمين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. So, I think this is week 4 for Surah Al-Ikhlas. Let's read it once more. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Qul huwa Allahu ahad. Say He is Allah. Ahad. Allahu samad. Allah the samad. Lam yalid wa lam yulad. He begets not, nor is he begotten. Wa lam yakul lahu kufuwan ahad. And there is none comparable unto him. I left Ahad and Samad as they are because these were a good portion of our past 3 weeks conversation. What is Ahad? What does that mean? And what does it not mean? How do we support that description of the Creator by observing the creation? What does that mean? And finally, we were talking about how does knowing that God is Ahad affect me in my day-to-day life. Then last week we were talking about Allahu Samad, and Samad was meaning everything needs him while he does not need anything. Again, we talked about how we can see or confirm that, because this is guidance. Guidance is coming with this suggestion, but how can I bear witness to that? So we talked about that. This was past week. And again, at the end of last week's discussion, we talked about how living with such a conclusion affects my life. How does it become part of my life? So I am skipping this part. Any comments, questions you would like to add? No? Yes, go ahead.
I just wanted to add maybe a quick reflection that is based on something I saw earlier this week. It was related to sort of what's happening in Gaza. So it's about the people that are relying on a samad, and they're translated samad as like he's alone. And I don't know, that kind of brought me a sort of comfort, because if he is the only one who's able to be alone, that means it's not possible for him to ever be alone. So,
and also taking his company for myself is what's going to save me from my loneliness, my existential loneliness. Walaikum assalam. Okay, so lam yalid wa lam yulad. He begat not, nor was he begotten. So I'll post questions one after the other here. Would you mind opening the door downstairs? So lam yalid means God does not beget something. I guess beget is, at least for me as a person speaking English as a second language, sounds a little bit of a fancy word, but give birth to is, I guess, what it means. Lam yulad, he is not begotten. But what does that mean? Like, Quran is mentioning this, but like if I say dua actually does not have wings, what would you say? Like, oh, of course it does not have wings. I mean, why are you negating something that nobody was even concerned about in the first place, right? So, but if I say dua doesn't have a finger, let's say, which she does, but if I were to say, then you would say, what happened to her finger? Like, you are expecting her to have a finger. If I say she doesn't have a finger, but not for the wings. When we say God does not beget and he is not begotten. Is this something like, why is this description there? Yes.
Important because of how we think of like humans in general. Because like we think we came from someone and we give birth to someone else. So if we were to format and how we think, this is like our structure, and in anything we see, they're given birth by something and they give birth to something else. But this is saying like Allah does not fall into that category. And of course, there's no sort of clear approach, then you can't do that, right? Like it has like you're being given clear instructions on how to think about like given that like if this is what you got, I was like, for example, something things happen to my head and I'm like, does he like what does Allah mean to me? Like, and then the next question could possibly be like, human birth by somebody, like is there someone higher than him, lower? And I think this can answer that question very clearly. Like you can't think of him in those structures, which eliminates him in like a human.
So right there, you already jumped from like biological birth. You didn't even consider this, right? Because you know that it doesn't make any sense for God to be biologically being given birth. So you just take it as hierarchy, for example, right? So this is a good starting point before anything. Like we don't imagine like wings and whatnot. So like talking about a biological birth doesn't make any sense at all. So this is not what we are really concerned about. But then, yes, since for me, everything comes from something, goes to something, like gives birth to, in this sense, meaning coming into existence from something which was there before this one came, and then it leads to something else. So this is our understanding of how things are happening around us. So we apply the same thing to God, or we might. Yes, Priya.
I was also thinking like when the author was talking about how like we are given birth to and then we give birth. Like if you think about it, that is how the human race is kept alive, or like is alive, like from the process of like one thing dying and then the next thing being born and then the next. But it's like this also suggests that God doesn't need that mechanism, you know, like God is just alive and always alive.
That's right. And if we think about it, how the whole surah started, it was starting with he. So there was this notion of he or it's in my head, which, as we were discussing before, like things are happening and there must be someone who is taking care of that. So this is why if the conversation starts with he, I know what we are talking about. Like things are happening, who is doing this? And then surah starts by saying, oh, he, the one that you are looking for, is such and such and such. So it looks like when I see the things that are happening, at least the way the verse is coming, it looks like I have a tendency to say that, well, whatever is governing this existence has a beginning likewise. Let's say I say, well, this human being, well, once was a child, but then parents and whatnot. Well, eventually it was a monkey. Well, eventually actually it was a cell. At some point it was a particle, Big Bang. Yeah? Like this is how we are trying to explain the phenomena that we observe. It's always in the causal chain of events. One is coming before, giving birth, giving existence to another thing that follows. This is why we tend to ask the question, if we are searching for he within the system itself. Yes.
I think I would also like to connect it to Allah's Samad, right? Where we talked about how he is like sought by everyone and sought by everything. And that like makes you question like how come it is that everyone and everything is seeking him? And then this comes as a response, he begets not, nor was he begotten. Like begotten means that he isn't dependent on anything to come into existence. And then even with the notion of begetting, like we beget it for most part because we also need something, right? We have that fear of, oh, I will get old and I need someone to take care of me when I get old, so I will have these kids. you know, but like he doesn't have that need. So yeah, like he's not dependent on anything, he's insufficient.
Okay, very good. But how about, yeah, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. Okay.
I was just also thinking about like the context, under which the like school was revealed to. So like in the context, everyone's sort of questioning sort of what is the nature of like this God of Islam. And the Quraysh in particular placed such an emphasis on like the ancestry of well, I guess like a god, and they also placed a lot of like power and importance on like what one's like lineage and like background comes from. So I was thinking like even today, like a lot of what we know gets attributed to what is passed down from like our forefathers, for example, and that's like I feel like that's kind of where we attribute like our knowledge and like success is like, for example, this person invented electricity in this age, and that's how we've like kind of advanced so as far as we have, but it kind of stops there.
Mhm.
That person was also like had to be born.
And don't forget that comment, because I think this is going to be extremely relevant when we talk about how does this affect my life. Because considering this, a notion of a creator that can be born, or that can be transferred by giving birth to something else, boils down to how I live, how I feel as well. So if I can imagine godly qualities, or yeah, let's leave it there. Godly qualities are something that are transferable and whatnot, then I can comfortably say that, well, here I am, and I inherited something. And I am a little bit of a God by myself too. So inshallah, we'll get to that too. So let me ask a little different question. So let's say, let me pick up a victim. So Kadir is here. So Kadir, you believe that God creates phone, Apple, everything. So this is not giving birth, or what does that mean? Like, as we were talking about how there are two us mentioning it, a hierarchy and whatnot. Okay, let's say God not being inherited by someone, but how about God putting forth something? God created phone, God created earth, God created Apple and whatnot. How would it be different? Now it's saying that God does not give birth to something, but we say God creates things. Is it just a play of words, or what's the distinction between creating, or in your perception, I'm not talking about the technicalities, but when we say God creates versus God gives birth to or begets something, so what's the distinction between them?
From my understanding, I would say like when you give birth to something, it's like they're a part of you, but like creating something, they're not like specifically a part of you, but like you're creating something. So in that way, maybe it is different. Like, that is to the extent that I can think of the differences between them.
Okay, so we got the first victim. How about the rest of the people? Yes, Stu.
I was also sort of thinking of it in terms of like being a part of you, but also like, so if I think of like humans giving birth, right? Like the child is taking things from parents, right? Like even in the case of pregnancy, like nutrients from the mom or whatever, you know, so the mom is sacrificing something, giving a part of her to the child. So it's like the child sort of has a share in that.
And child is like mother. sharing qualities or resembling in terms of qualities. Do we imagine something similar when it comes to creation? Like if we do so, we might maybe be talking about giving birth rather than creation. So the word here being beget, begotten, lam yalid, walam yulad is emphasizing the notion of, again, Quran is speaking to humans in a way that humans can understand. Otherwise, of course, it doesn't make any sense to talk about birth with the biological meaning of birth we know about. But when we talk about giving birth, we are talking about qualities that resemble the original. So this verse is saying that in no way you can talk about such a relationship between Apple and the creator of the Apple. Does this make sense to you? Or is this relatable? What do you think? Yes.
I think I'm supposed to like, I don't know, I don't think I like analyzed it that much other than saying like, if there's a characteristics that I don't know and there's like already an assumption that I think in a very specific way, which I think is like how I process this. Like there's a specific way I think of what does it mean. Like I only have my perspective as a human. So like my initial thought of God might be that, like the fact that there's a he in there, like you might imagine a God that's a he, and so then it's very easy for me to think like there's like process, some sort of process happening, that this doesn't just like magically appear, let's say, I better word. So like, but this specifically points out like characteristics that I should recognize, meaning like it's a possible pitfall, but it's specified, so then maybe you can catch yourself and recognize that this is not characteristics that are attributable. So I guess, I don't know, that's all I got.
Okay. Yes.
Can we say the mercy is a characteristic of the creator characteristic? Because like you see, maybe not in the phone, but like the mercy of your mother, or like the compassion and love of your mother, that could maybe relate to God.
Yes. What do you think about that? Now, human is a creation of God. Human is merciful. God is merciful. Does this sound like characteristics of God is inherited by humans? Yes.
I guess I was thinking of it as like, what if I like make something like write a book or a paper? So I guess I was thinking of it like you can see my like signature, maybe like you can tell that like in certain parts of the book that like, oh, maybe like the author felt this way or that way. But no one would say that the book like represents like all of my like qualities as a person, like, but I guess it's more of like finding sort of like the author's like signature like in what is created versus like actually taking that book to be something that came from me. I don't know, I think about it in a physical sense, like the book just emerged from me rather than like that's what I take like begetting to
I think
mean.
that's a valuable conversation to have, because this can help us learn how not to imagine God. And if I'm not going to imagine God, then how do I get to know God? Becomes another question, because we, like human, is given this faculty of imagination with which we draw images, because with images we can get to put a shape to something so that we work with it. But then now I'm talking about God, and God is, as we have been discussing before, absolute, undefinable, and whatnot. Yet I would like to get to know him. So I'm now falling into a weird position. Like I'm not going to imagine him, yet I want to get to know him. So how do I do that? And now the verse is saying that there is a way to do that, but this is not type of relationship that you know as giving birth to, or like begetting or gotten well, God begotten, yes, whatever. So that sort of relationship is not there. At the first level, creator is not inheriting his qualities to the creation. The relationship between what you observe and him is creatorship, which means you are always staying in this side. You just observe that it came into being. That's all I know. I don't know beyond that. Like, oh, it was because he had such a thing and he put it into here. I don't know. I'm not trying to imagine him because I cannot. If I was able to, then I would have given a shape to him already. Shape means shape of a leaf, shape of a ball, shape of something that I know of, right? Which would be a creation itself in the first place. So it doesn't make any sense. So that relationship shouldn't be there. This is stage one. So first, I'm trying to readjust myself. If I start imagining a creator in this sense, don't go there. What am I going to do? We'll talk about that inshallah, because وَلَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُ كُفُوًا will come. There's nothing like him. Now you're even making it even tougher for me, right? If I tell Atik about a certain, let's say, yeah, I saw the guy, and Atik says, well, what does he look like? And I'm trying to explain him, well, his hair was gray like Birkan, but they were long like Duaz, but also I'm describing somebody with what he knows of. And now we are talking about someone, there's none like him. Then description becomes pointless. Yet we are, first of all, I am in need of getting to know him. And Quran is telling me about my maker. Where do I stand? Okay, so this is a problem that we are now at. Another thing, now I'm putting it aside. What we discussed, let's put it aside. Let's keep it in our pocket. Lam yalid wa lam yulad is also must be something about I do. I am ascribing creatorship to things which do born and which give birth to other stuff. And as if this verse is saying that could they really be creator? Anything that gives birth, anything that is given birth, could it be a creator? The simplest example for that, of course, somebody would say that, well, this verse is talking about Jesus, Isa alayhi salam, because Christians said Jesus is the Son of God. As Quran mentions, Jews said Uzair ibn Allah, Uzair is the Son of God. So it looks like it's not only Christians. It happened throughout the time. People are being attributed with godly qualities. Is this something that we do? First of all, let's talk about that. Or is this like some people who are not as capacitated in thinking, and then they're just attributing Godhead to human beings here and there? Have you seen anybody who is attributing godly qualities to things that are given birth, other than Christians and Jews in this example?
What was the nation of Islam?
Nation of Islam. Okay. Yeah. Was he also God, or was he just a prophet?
The other guy. So there's Elijah Muhammad, and then the person he received instruction from.
Oh, he was God.
Yeah, he was God.
Okay, now we have three examples. I'm looking for a fourth one, not these three.
It's pretty prevalent in Greek mythology,
Greek mythology.
and it never ends. It's like the gods, like they keep giving birth, and then that's a god, that's a god. So it's a lot of confusion and a lot of fighting and stuff.
Okay, and this was also 2,000 years ago. Yes.
I guess for me, I was thinking more closer to things that I attribute that I did not think was God until like our Friday lecture, like just like rain, and then I'm like, oh, it's it's raining and I'm not really attuned to anything other than that, like that rain has the power, like the things I learned basically rather than it's true attribution or like I wake up in the morning, I'm like, oh, I woke up this morning. So like I wouldn't even go that far, but the little things that I continuously attribute to the physical things that I'm actually observing, I think that's where I catch myself the most is my day to day.
Yeah. Yes.
Things that you think give you security.
For example,
For example, you think like money gives you security or it gives you peace. Or for example, you think that your boss in your office and that salary gives you security,
your degree.
your degree, your muscles, and everything.
There you go.
None of them think so.
Muscles, yes. Yes, do it.
Mother Nature giving birth to food for us.
Mother Nature. Okay. So let's say some of your friends from high school. Let's make it distant so that it's not going to be very worrisome. Somebody texts you, oh, you heard such and such passed away. What would be your first reaction? What happened? Like he was not sick. Like he was not sick. It has to be either the sickness takes him away or an accident takes him away, something takes him away. So something new is there, which is death. What gave birth to death? What made this to happen, right? Catching yourself at this moment is tough. So, and this is why I think I mentioned this on Friday too. Prophet says, like the verse, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un, like from him we come and to him we go. Whomever says this first in the news of a death shows the taqwa of that person, like the quality of iman of that person. I mean, of course, it's now a reflex and we race for it, right? We hear and I will say it first. But if that verse truly comes to my mind when I hear the news of death, then I would say, well, yeah, apparently the guy was sick or the guy was hit by a car or something, but from him we have been coming and to him we go. He is the one who is at play, who is the one who is acting, who is the one who creates life and who creates death every moment anyways. So we thinking that this apparent cause creating or giving birth to the outcome is giving that quality to the thing itself, to the cause itself. And this verse is saying that the things that you observe, which are being given birth, like appearing, like death appeared after accident. Like death was not there. Accident came before it. So if something is coming into being where it was not there before, so something must be creating it. And if something is giving birth to something else, like it cannot be God by itself. Like that sort of a relationship is indicating before and after, being in need of being given birth to or giving birth. These are qualities which are not fitting with how the whole existence is acting, how it requires infinite power, infinite knowledge, infinite wisdom, all those things that we are observing. That relationship of being given birth to and well, you know, lam yalid and walam yulad, these are showing that, this should be showing you that it cannot be happening. There must be a creator who is creating it. If you observe a particle like hydrogen and oxygen coming together, water is formed. So these two are now giving birth to some qualities. Some of them are being transferred, some new qualities are being born. I need to ask the question, where did this come from? Because the first hydrogen and oxygen didn't have them in themselves. Some of the qualities were not there in them. And now it's being formed in here. Like, where did this come from? Existence from non-existence doesn't make any sense. It cannot happen. How does this happen? Because if the thing has it in its pocket, I would say, okay, take it out of its pocket and hand it over to the next one. But this is not the case here. Where did this come from? So this lam yalid wa lam yulad, if I look at it in my day-to-day life, I keep observing this and I keep attributing effects to causes. This is saying that no, whatever is being given birth, meaning has a beginning, is being created, cannot be God. Something that which is giving birth to something else cannot be God either. Because in the existence, to wrap it up again, things are both cause and effect. Like if you look at Qadir, he is an effect from one perspective, he is going to be a cause from another perspective. Like this is how the whole existence is, right? So anything in this cause-effect relationship cannot be God. And if we read it from reverse, if I start attributing godly qualities to anything that gives birth or being given birth to, then everything becomes God. What I mean by that is, if I accept such a thing, let's again go with the case of Jesus. If I say, yes, Jesus is Son of God, what that means is, from among us, there is a being which has godly qualities. Then Qadir would say, well, if Jesus is, then I could also be God, because I am sharing properties with God, the Jesus. So this opens up a door that everything becomes God. Any cause and every cause becomes God. This is why that is really shutting the door to the idea of attributing godly qualities to things themselves. And this is not a thing only for the Greek mythology, for the Christians or Jews or Nation of Islam, but it is something that is very relevant to me. Okay. Yes. Now maybe we can conclude with this last question. How relevant is the message of this verse to you? I guess I said something on top of that, but anything that you would like to share? This verse, the news of this, the message of this verse. How does it affect you? Like knowing this and saying that, oh, this is a life changer for me. It's bringing a perspective to me which was so different. Derek was talking about that too. But how does it improve your life, or does it improve your life? Might be a repetition, but go ahead.
Anything, it would mean that anything that I believe to be a cause, actually has no power. Anything that I attribute power actually does not also have power.
So this might, yeah, go ahead, Dua.
I think it restores my faith in the power of Allah. Because when I read this verse, I think about how, because he does not beget, and nor is he begotten, he is nothing like I am. And I find myself to be deficient, to be needy, and it restores my faith in the fact that, he is powerful.
Yeah. And this Birkan's example that he gave in one of the previous discussions, his friend asking Birkan, saying that, oh, pray for me so that I become rich, so that I buy house for my parents. So, and Birkan was telling him, like, why shouldn't I ask that God gives home to your parents? Like, why are you trying to put yourself in between that God gives money to you and you buy the house? Like, God directly give house to them. Why are you putting? So this notion of something giving birth to something else is so much in our heads that I am putting those intermediaries in there. And I say, well, how else would the house come? Because money begets house. So I need money. And to get money, working begets money, so on and so forth. So as I live in this cycle, then if I don't get promoted in the job, everything collapses. My world collapses because I was planning according to this chain of events. Hence, I live a life where I keep chasing those things that are being, yeah, beget or begotten, like things that are giving birth or that give birth to others. And my life becomes miserable in this case, yes.
And I think it also makes me feel closer to Allah because this verse confirms that God's only relationship is with his creation. So there is no other relationship. There is no God-Father relationship. There's no God-Son relationship. There's just God-creation relationship. So it truly makes me feel like, he is giving me attention or he cares about me.
Very good. Very good. Yes.
I think sort of like, because, for example, like, let's say I take an exam or a quiz or something, and then I'm like, I took that exam and you get a result and you're not really attributing it to what, like, because then you're like, I must have not done X, Y, Z. I'm having a very hard time because so then my initial thought isn't really like, oh, this is meant to be. I'm like, what didn't I study? Like, what did I miss? Why didn't I read it correctly? Like, that's actually more of my initial thought process. But then you're right. I am in despair and I am like, why not I do X? But then if you do mention and recognize God in that verse, would you still not despair? Like, is still some feeling of like, because I wonder if that takes away the feeling or makes, because I don't know if it just magically makes you feel better. I guess that's what I'm having a harder time with, and also like, what should have been my initial thought? You go on first.
Okay, it's good. We put you in limbo now. We took away something, but we didn't replace it with anything better. Yes.
This actually happened to me very recently, and
Okay.
I can confirm that it did indeed make me feel better. So I didn't study very much for my exam, and I went to the exam, and it was very hard. And like,
You didn't study?
I didn't study a lot.
Okay.
Yeah, and I didn't do well. I left like the whole 20-mark question. It was a whole thing, okay? So then I come out, right? I'm like, whatever, okay. I'm not that sad because I'm not like 13 anymore, but I'm still like, okay, maybe whatever. But then I look at the moon, and the moon was so bright and so, and it was also raining. Actually, no, there wasn't a moon. It was raining, and I was like, wow, like something in the sky.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, wow, like this is so beautiful, like perfect order. And then it made me think of my exam, and I was like, you know what? I'm seeing perfect order in there too. I didn't study, I didn't do well, and then I felt better about it because then I knew what I had to do in the future. So it sort of like tells you, okay, it's done and it's coming from God, and like he is also telling you like how you can improve the situation then.
Mm-hmm. Zareen has something there.
I guess I feel like it might be comforting in the sense that like if if um if God isn't the one who is begotten or beginning, then that means he's the one that's sort of giving like these attributes to like a creation. And I guess for me that kind of indicates that, these things that have an ending, there will also be another beginning, and things that begin will like end, so I shouldn't get too attached over certain things. Like for example, if I like have to like move somewhere and I feel sad that I'm like leaving so and so people behind, then one thing that gives me comfort is that I felt this way like maybe before moving here, and then I met people, and so why shouldn't why shouldn't I be given, because that I feel like brings a sense of entitlement. But it's like, the creator that gave me in this circumstance is also giving me in another circumstance. the one who's controlling the beginnings and like there isn't it isn't random like the way something begins and ends.
So I guess if we get stuck with the things themselves, then even if I achieve it, it's going to leave, it will leave me anyways. Like even if you were to be successful in that exam, you have been successful in many exams in the past and they're already gone. If you're unsuccessful, still, like we are chasing something, happiness, unhappiness, and whatnot, they go away. Happinesses go away, which leaves sadness. Sadnesses stay with their sad memories, causing another type of sadness and whatnot. But if I see that the point in here, they were not the actual point. They were there to tell me about someone who doesn't give birth or is given birth. Like, if I know that the one that they point to is eternal, al-Baqi, this is why they write to the graveyards, who al-Baqi, he is the eternal one. So if I get to know that, well, the exam was not the point. What I learned from the exam about him was the point. If I get that, this is the part that I should be concerned about. Like, I have been unsuccessful in the exam. What was I supposed to learn out of that? About my creator, not about the exam being hard or me being lazy. Like, what does it mean for me to be lazy in my relationship in this existence? This is the question. What did I neglect that I had been lazy? Because there was an invitation to me by my creator to sit before this book and experience how I'm going to teach you things. You will be sitting and staring at the book, and tomorrow I'm going to remind you of the answers. That was what I was supposed to learn in this interaction of the exam. But I said I'm going to sleep. Because of my neglect of this invitation. Like, imagine you're like somebody, your mom or somebody who you love a lot invites you for a dinner, and it's a dinner specifically for you, and you skip the dinner because you were watching a show or you were sleeping. Like, the point is in there, well, it was going to be a delicious food, I missed the food. That's not the main point. You missed the opportunity of being honored by this person who invited you. This is the main problem in there. Because that person serving you beautiful food was just a sign of love for you to observe. But if I got stuck with the taste of the food itself and not what I was going to be exposed to in that dinner, well, this is my main negligence in there. My negligence is somebody was giving value to me in the example, inviting me for dinner, and I skipped that. I didn't appreciate the value that's being given to me. But tomorrow morning, if I say, well, I missed that delicious food, then that means I am focusing on the wrong place. Let me apply this example to your class as well. My creator was inviting me to experience that he is Al-Alim, he is the one who teaches me. Because as a cause, I could think that I learned because I studied. But just experience it. You're sitting in front of it, and somehow information is being recorded somewhere. And tomorrow that information is being brought to you during the exam. I don't know where it was recorded, where it is coming from. I have no idea. But I am in need of that, and I am being provided with that. So I should be praising my creator because of this interaction. And I skipped that interaction. So I am responsible for that. If I get this out of that mistake, this is good. That means repentance, and repentance erases the mistake. If I consciously realize that, oh Allah, now I admit that by being lazy, actually, yeah, in the eyes of the school, I am guilty. But my actual guilt is before you. The guilt is not about me skipping the exam for the sake of exam or the degree and whatnot. This is the worldly outcome. The actual outcome is I skipped or I ignored your invitation to learn about you being the teacher. And as an outcome, you created this to me so that I get to know my mistake. I got my points. I understood what you are saying. I repent. This is a totally different perspective of looking at life with the lens of reading in the name of God who created, in the name of Lord who created. But otherwise, if I look at the same event from a secular perspective, I would say, well, you should be careful, sleep early next time, don't miss your next class. You need to be a responsible person. You have to stand on your own feet. Nobody's going to have pity for you. You have to earn your own livelihood. These would be the lessons I take out of that, right? Which is depicting a dark world where I have to shoulder all the weight of life by myself. So this is the difference. Yes, you were having a comment. I made you forget. Okay. But if to the extent, I mean, this might be a very idealistic depiction and whatnot, but to the extent that I get to understand this, then I can say, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un, when I miss an exam. Like, because missing an exam is sort of a death. Like there was supposed to come something to life, a successful outcome, and you missed it. So do I attribute it to certain causes again? Or do I see the signature of the creator in that creation too? So it would be beautiful, and in retreat we will slightly touch it, if we can live life with this perspective of qadar as much as possible. Like why creator created this as such? What is the message he wants to give to me out of that? And we would be in such an expectation in classes when I ask questions to students. Good students, like certain students are just taking the exam or questions just to get the grade. But there is a type of students, and I mean, one of them became my TA because, I mean, I am looking for that sort of a careful perspective to choose somebody as a TA. So he was saying that, well, why do you ask that question? What am I supposed to learn out of that? It shouldn't be just the gap filler. Like, well, I have to ask questions for 5 questions to collect 100 points. Just let me ask any question. What is unique that I am supposed to learn out of that question? Good students ask that, and they benefit more from that question, because the way the question is asked this way but not that way is giving another further information to the student. So it's a very beautiful learning experience. So I should be able to do that when it comes to life. Any other comments? Did I miss anything? Probably a lot. Go ahead, Kadir.
Then you go with the question that I asked about the characteristics, maybe I missed it.
Characteristics. Okay, remind me.
Regarding the mercy of your mother.
Okay. Let's talk about this. وَلَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُ كُفُوًا أَحَدٌ. Okay. So we say moms are merciful and God is merciful. Now the verse is saying that وَلَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُ كُفُوًا أَحَدٌ, and there is none comparable unto him. How do we handle the issue about God being merciful? What does this mean? Because, well, my mom is merciful. Of course, God's mercy is way, 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 way bigger than my mom's mercy. But that comparableness, like even if it's a speckle of a dust versus the whole universe, still, I guess I can quantify space in terms of how many speckle of dust I can fit into the huge galaxy or universe and whatnot. It would be too large of a number. Even our mathematics person wouldn't be able to speak that number out, but at least he can write it as a x to the x to the x to the x, like he can find some way to quantify it. Yes.
Before going,
Okay.
no, not affected by this.
Yes.
So I was asking, what with being your careful student, what this ayah tells me that other ayah didn't tell me already. And we started with قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد. So up to this point, okay, when you look at the creation, you see the oneness there. Whoever created this laptop must be the one who created this TV as well and the cable as well. And when I look at the cable, I see both the qualities of the monitor, the TV, and the the laptop. So whoever created this cable must be knowing about computers and TVs as well. And then Allah Samad, when I study this cable more, I realize that how all-encompassing knowledge, right? So the person also needs to, just an example, needs to know about the electrons and the shape and the colors and the electricity, whatever. Everything needs to be done, needs to be known. So whoever created this thing in the universe must be well with the all-encompassing knowledge, power, and so on. And everything in the creation, I see that requires such one thing. And then comes this Lam-Yalid wa Lam Yulad. I already, kind of understood that the creator is like the all-encompassing, like absolute in every sense, with Allah Subhanahu, to some extent at least. And then everything needs it to be created. I know that. So what does these tell me? Different than and I believe we already discussed this. I'm just trying to fit it into my mind because it's flowing around. And it seems like, at least to me, this is specifically talking about one type of understanding that we apply all the time, as we discussed, is causal relationships or chains. Like I sometimes say that, yes, of course, God created this laptop, but between God and this laptop, the product, there are all these intermediaries, right? Everything, yes, everything needs God.
Eventually.
Eventually, yes. Everything needs God eventually, but before going God, we have these chains, right? I mean, I need God for sure, but at the same time, I need my mom and my dad and their dad and their, and so on and so forth.
I can trace it back up to Big Bang.
Yes. And this is usually like one prevalent, let's say, common way of believing God, who is one and something. And we have these chains. And this ayah is almost telling me that because if you try to understand who created this laptop by using these chains in your mind, and causal chains, that's what I mean, or historical events, right? If you try to do that, you will fail, this ayah says. It's not like, you shouldn't think God in this way, otherwise I will slap you. But rather, if you try to do that, you will see that it won't have work. Because with every, the element of this chain, like who created this laptop? Oh, the engineers created it. Then you have to ask how a person can create such a thing. And then you realize that this person, or if you're thinking that these atoms giving rise to this laptop, and these atoms has to have these godly qualities. They need to have all encompassing knowledge. They have to be summoned, right? And I say that this is not possible. So whatever gave birth to this laptop cannot be these atoms. Or I cannot see, think of such a birth relationship between Adams and his left eye. It doesn't work, I say. So this ayah is getting rid of this idea of chains, like the evolution, right? I ask who made Yusuf as he is right now. And now she start talking about your historical, the
Ancestors,
ancestors, that the
monkey,
sort of chain. Yes,
my monkey relatives.
doesn't matter what specific species, but it's about some historical, events. And what she's doing, she's assuming that every event in your history had these godly qualities. And then Aya says, no, it won't work. Because you don't see these qualities in anything in this universe.
I guess the way we are generally thinking about this, and let's now take it maybe more Muslim-like at this moment, although it doesn't differ too much. But we say, well, God created water and now water is doing this sort of thing. Yes, yeah, we then add Bismillah so that we undo what we did wrong. God created fire and now fire is burning. Like God gave qualities to it, like, and now the qualities keep reproducing from there on. So this verse is then saying that, do you notice what you are doing by thinking as such? Well, you don't, I mean, in this case, of course, you cannot even explain how fire is burning whatever is next to it, but also this way of explaining you just contradicted with Samed as you're coming to here. You cannot have two Sameds. Yes, go ahead.
So, and when we ask the question, why this ayah is talking about birth, or, giving birth, in your example, when I say that the fire is burning, the qualities that I attribute to fire, they are like the godly qualities, because to burn something, you have to control the entire universe. Right? You're changing something in the universe. This burning.
And you're creating something new.
Exactly. So if this is the case, then I'm looking at the fire and I'm saying that, oh, tiny God. So that's the reason the ayah is talking about birth. As if, because when I do that, I'm telling implicitly that the God, the big God, gave birth to this tiny God, so that it has also godly property qualities. Now it's burning.
Yeah, like wood gave birth to fire.
Yes.
Like what one is there before, now another thing is there, both of whom are active agents. Like one is creating fire, the other one is now going to create more fire and whatnot.
And every element in this, the story has to be a tiny God. If I say fire burns, it means fire is a tiny God. That's what I believe in reality, implicitly, unconsciously.
Yeah.
As if God gave birth to this tiny God.
Yes. Yes, there.
Point about destroying these chains kind of stuck out to me, because I was thinking about, we often say like some of one of the miracles of the Quran is its preservation, and like the same with the Hadith, like its preservation throughout time through these like chains of like narrations and recitations. So I was wondering like, how do we like think of like those then, because that is also a process of like that's sort of how, like, I guess are we not supposed to think of that as like in terms of like a chain that we like follow to, or like trace back to, like, confirm that this is a message that has been like preserved by like the creator. So I don't know,
I mean that's a good point actually, because if we think about indeed we have revealed this message and we are going to protect it, the creator says about Quran itself. So what we can say, well, there had been Hufaz, the people who memorized Quran, actually they protected Quran. Or we can say, well, through them God protected, putting another chain in there. Or we can say that, well, there had been very strong Muslim states which protected Quran's message up until now. But the Creator is saying that, no, we protect it. So to whom am I attributing protection of Quran? Or even I might claim that, well, like we are having discussions and I am protecting Quran. I might even attribute it to myself. So who is the one that is acting in there? And people put their efforts in there as a dua, as Darartu would put her effort to be successful tomorrow in the exam. But her effort is nothing but a dua, meaning, oh, Allah, give me success in the exam. I'm in need of success. I don't know how to learn. I don't know how to remember. Then tomorrow she would say, God gave me success. She wouldn't say, oh, I studied, therefore I am successful. Likewise, like the chain of transmission and whatnot, as much as I incorporate the notion of creator is the one who is creating it moment by moment, it applies to you as a chain, apparently, from your childhood right now, and you don't have any issues saying that, well, I was being created yesterday, I am being created today too. And for the like chains of narration, I would say that Quran is preserved that day, Quran is preserved day number 2, day number 5, to the moment. He is the one, he is the protector that keeps creating that. So it's not that, well, since it's based on chain of transmission and now we are killing all the transmissions. That's not the point. Okay, you had a comment there? There are two? No? Okay.
Do you have an example? You have an example?
No example.
Oh, okay.
She's done with it. Okay, ولم يكن له كفوا أحد remains for next week, inshallah. And
My
سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وآخر دعواهم أن الحمد لله رب العالمين